Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gentleman Psychic. Let me actually go over here and share this on YouTube, on the Facebook. 1 second. Let me go over here to me. Library, your videos. Lives. I should be live now. Sort by most recent. No. Why can't I find it? Oh, here we go. Speak of the devil. There we go. To Facebook. And we'll put that over there. And then we'll go over here and share it one more time. I didn't go live earlier. Hello, Lauren. Lovely to see you, my friend. I'm well. Baked Lotus. Hello, good evening, Mr. Maxwell. Ms. Mary Jane. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much. You will notice, those of you who have not been following me on the Book of Faces, I shaved my head again. I do this periodically when I need a change, and my scalp will let me know when it's time, because no matter what, the shampooing doesn't work and nothing seems to get rid of the itch. So I have to shave it and start again, and that's fine. And so I shaved it. So I didn't change. I'm still wearing my day suit. I was lazy, I must admit. The clock is going to go. It's a little bit late, but that's okay. I think it's late. What time is it? Oh no, the clock is right on time. I think I'm just a little bit too early. That's okay. We'll let everyone sort of go and get your drinks and get prepared for story time. We have just a few more moments before the clock strikes. Thank you very, very much, Baked Lotus. Love it. Thank you very much. I'm a little crooked. I just realized my mustache is a little crooked. It's a little crooked. That's okay. You won't be looking too much at that, I suppose. Anyway, I am so glad that you are here. Time to pick your poison. Mine is strychnine. So healthy, too. Okay. I'll let the clock go. I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on. So I'll be in Salem I'll be in Boston for sure at the end of the month, 27th, I believe. And I may be in Salem before that. Good evening, sweet Ciara. Good evening, Melissa. Hello. So that's kind of exciting. What else can I talk about? Oh, there's the clock. There we go. I do have a few more things to mention. I want to start doing a political news channel. Like, I want to start talking about things that are in the news. We'll do that not on story time, because I don't want to encroach on this particular one, but we'll be starting that one. I will be teaching more classes with University Magicus, so come and find me there. I've got a few more things that are a little hush-hush, but I will let you know as soon as I can. I don't really have much more to say, excepting for thank you for joining me, and let's begin where we left off. The War in Heaven. God and the Devil, Light and Darkness, Mazda and Arman, They exist through contrast by reason of each other. A belief in God is a dualistic philosophy, presupposes a belief in opposing force of evil, and if the deity is anthropomorphic, then the darkness too takes on the form of man, to become the familiar devil with horns, a cloven hoof, and telltale caudal appendage, or proud Lucifer with Stygian wings, the prince of darkness. It is further axiomatic that once called into existence, these forces must be in the active opposition. In its most sublime conception, this titanic struggle is the war in heaven, God and the heavenly hosts, in the ceaseless battle with Satan and his minions. From Isaiah's, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning," down to the present day, the story has captured the imagination of the creative artist. Nicodemus, in his apocryphal gospel, attributed to the 3rd century, brings the war into close focus. Jesus of Nazareth descends into hell, and his advent precipitates a trenchant passage in which Satan, in this case, differentiated from the prince of hell, is given a thorough going over, raising an almost impenetrable demonic smoke further to confuse future hagiographers. And while Satan and the prince of hell were discoursing thus to each other, on a sudden there was a voice as of thunder, and the rushing of winds, saying, "Lift up your gates, O ye princes, and be ye lifted up, everlasting gates, and the King of glory shall come in." When the prince of hell heard this, he said to Satan, "Depart from me, and be gone out of my habitations. If thou art a powerful warrior, fight with the King of glory. But what hast thou to do with him?" And then he cast him forth from the habitations. And the prince said to his impious officers, "Shut the brass gates of cruelty, and make them fast with iron bars. And fight courageously, lest we be taken captives." But when all the company of the saints heard this, they spake with a loud voice of anger, and the prince of hell opened the gates that the King of glory may come in. Satan, hurled headlong, flaming from the ethereal sky, and condemned to dwell in adamant chains and penial fire, becomes in Paradise Lost the occasion for John Milton's investigation of the creation of the world and his elaborately elusive cosmos. But hell's fire had to burn less brightly, and the threat of excommunication loomed less vital before the artist could give his imagination full play. A conception such as that of Anatole France in The Revolt of Angels would have been tantamount to a most painful suicide in Milton's day, and for another 100 years thereafter. Anatole France toys cheerfully with Milton's vain war with heaven and lets his Satan vision the effects of final conquest. Satan, with his brain filled with the dense fumes of theology, realizes in his dream the inevitable result of victory if it should fall into his hands. Satan sees himself seated on the throne of God, and then he wakes in an icy sweat. Turning to his entourage, he says, "No, we will not conquer the heavens. Enough to have the power, war endangers war, and victory defeat. God conquered will become Satan. Satan conquering will become God. May the fates spare me this terrible lot. I love the hell which formed my genius." Greatly oversimplified, that the essence of Anatole France's closing chapter from The Revolt of Angels, which has been included in this section along with a brief excerpt from Paradise Lost. In War in Heaven, Philip Berry once posed an even more daring theological hypothesis. His novel is intricate in structure and plays on 2 levels. One, level is the story of a group of down-at-heel vaudeville troopers. On another, it's an allegory with startling implications, produced on Broadway under the title Here Come the Clowns. It seemed to baffle most audiences, but in both the play and the novel, Max Pabst is a most superior modern devil. And it is strange commentary that even today the story seems to take an added meaning and depth every time the devil makes his appearance. Mr. Barry conceives the awesome possibility that the devil has won the war in heaven, but that, for reasons of policy, he has kept the news of his victory from mankind, the better to discredit the concept of God, who is actually no longer able to take part in the affairs of our universe. This is the most devastating communique ever to reach us from this eternal front. Selection from Book 1 of Paradise Lost, John Milton. Say first, for heaven hides nothing from thy views, nor the deep tract of hell. Say first what cause moved our grandparents to the happy state, favored of heaven so highly to fall off from their Creator, and transgress his will. For one restraint, lords of the world besides, who first seduced them to that foul revolt? The infernal serpent, he it was whose guile stirred up with envy and revenge, deceived the mother of mankind, what time his pride had cast him off from the heaven with all his host of rebel angels, by whose aid a spring to set himself in glory above his peers. He trusted to have quelled the Most High, if he opposed, and with ambitious aim, against the throne of and monarchy of God, raised impious war in heaven, and battled proud with vain attempt. Him the almighty power hurled headlong, flaming from the eternal sky, with hideous ruin and combustion down, to bottomless perdition there to dwell. In adamantic chains and penal fire, who durst defy the omnipotent to arms, 9 times the space that measures day and night to mortal men, he with his horrid crew lay vanquished, rolling in the fiery gulf, confounded through immortal, but his doom received him to more wrath, for now the thought both of lost happiness and lasting pain torments him. Round he throws his baleful eyes, that witnessed huge affliction and dismay, mixed with obdurate pride and steadfast hate. At once as far as angels can he views. The dismal situation, waste and wild, a dungeon horrible, on all sides round, as one great furnace flamed, yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible, served only to discover sights of woe, regions of sorrow, doleful shades where peace and rest can never dwell, hope never comes. That comes to all, but torture without end still urges, and fiery deluge fed, with ever-burning sulphur unconsumed, such place eternal, justice had prepared for those rebellious here, their prison ordained, in utter darkness, and their portion set, as far removed from God and light of heaven, as far from the center thrice to the utmost pole. Oh, how unlike the place from whence they fell, where the companions of his fall, overwhelmed with floods and whirlwinds and of tempestuous fire, he soon discerns, and weltering by his side, one next himself in power and next in crime, long after known in Palestine and named Beelzebub, to whom the arch enemy, and thence in heaven called Satan, with bold words, breaking the horrid silence thus begun. If thou beest he, but oh, how fallen, how changed from him who is in happy realms of light, clothed with transcendent brightness, didst outshine myriads though bright, if whom mutual league, united thoughts and counsels, equal hope, and hazard and glorious enterprise, joined with me once, now misery hath joined in equal ruin, into that pit thou seest, from what highest fall, so much the stronger proved he with the thunder, until then, who knew the force of those dire arms? Yet not for those, nor what the potent victor in his rage can else inflict. Do I repent or change? Though changed in outward luster and fixed mind and high disdain, from sense of injured merit, that with the mightiest raised me to content, and to the fierce contention brought along innumerable force of spirits armed, that durst dislike his reign, and me preferring his utmost power with adverse power opposed in dubois battle in the plains of heaven, and shook his throne. What though the fields be lost? All is not lost. The unconquerable will and study of revenge, immortal hate, and encourage never to submit or yield. And what is else not to be overcome? That glory never shall his wrath or might extort from me, to bow and sue for grace with suppliant knee, and defy his power, who from the terror of his arm so late doubted his empire, that were low indeed, that were ignominy and shame beneath this downfall, since by fate the strength of gods and his ethereal substance cannot fail, since through experience of this great event, in arms not worse, in foresight much advanced, we may with more successful hope resolve to wage by force or guile eternal war, irreconcilable to our grand foe, who now triumphs in the excessive joy, sole reigning holds the tyranny of heaven. So spake the apostate angel, though in pain, vaunting aloud, but racked with deep despair, and him thus answered soon his bold compeer. O prince, O chief of many throned powers, that led the embattled seraphim to war, under thy conduct and in dreadful deeds, fearless endangered heaven perpetual king, and put to proof his high supremacy. Whether upheld by strength or chance or fate, too well I see the rue, the dire event, that with sad overthrow and foul defeat hath lost us heaven and all this mighty host in horrible destruction laid thus low, as far as gods and heavenly essences can perish. For the mind and spirit remains invincible, and vigor soon returns. Though all our glory extinct and happy state here swallowed up in endless misery, but what if he, our conqueror, whom I know of force believe almighty, since no less than such could have overpowered such force as ours, have left us in our spirit and strength entire, strangely to suffer and support our pains, that we may suffice his vengeful ire, or do him mightier service as his thralls by right of war, whatever his business be, here in the heart of hell to work in fire, or do his errands in the gloomy deep. What can it then avail, though yet we feel strength undiminished or eternal being, to undergo eternal punishment? Whereto with speedy words the arch-fiend replied, fallen cherub, to be weak is miserable, doing or suffering. But of this be sure, to do aught good never will be our task, but ever to do but ever to do ill our sole delight, as being the contrary to his high will, whom we resist. If then his providence, out of our evil, seek to bring forth good, Our labor must be to prevent that end, and out of good still to find means of evil, which oft times may succeed, so as perhaps shall grieve him, if I fail not, and disturb his inmost counsels from their destined aim. But see, the angry victory hath recalled his ministers of vengeance and pursuit back to the gates of heaven. The sulphurous hail shot after us in storm. Air-blown hath laid the fiery surge that from the precipice of heaven received us falling, and the thunder winged with red lightning, and the impetuous rage perhaps hath spent his shafts, and ceases now to bellow through the vast and boundless deep. Let us not slip the occasion, whether scorn or satite fury, yield it from our foe. Seest thou yon dreary plain, forlorn and wild, the seat of desolation, void of light, save what the glimmering to these livid flames cast pale and dreadful? Thither let us tend from off the tossing of these fiery waves. There rest, if any rest can harbor there, and resembling our afflicted powers, consult how we may henceforth most offend our enemy, our own loss, how repair, how overcome this dire calamity, what reinforcement we may gain from hope, if not what resolution from despair. Now, good evening, Amy. The Revolt of Angels by Anatole France. Climbing the 7 steep terraces which rise up from the bed of the Ganges to the temples muffled in creepers, to 5 angels reached by half obliterated paths, and wild garden filled with perfumed clusters of grapes and chattering monkeys, and, at the far end thereof, they discovered him whom they had come to seek. The archangel lay with his elbows on black cushions embroidered with golden flames. At his feet crouched lions and gazelles. Twined in the trees, tame serpents turned on him their friendly gaze. At the sight of his angelic visitors, his face grew melancholy. Long since, in the days when, with his brow crowned with grapes and his scepter of vine leaves in his hand, he had taught and comforted mankind, his heart had many times been heavy with sorrow, but never yet since his glorious downfall had his beautiful face expressed such pain and anguish. Zita told him of the black standards assembled in crowds in all the waste place of the globe, of the deliverances premeditated and prepared in the provinces of heaven, where the first revolt had long ago been fomented. Prince, she went on, your army awaits you. Come, lead it on to victory. Friends, replied the great archangel, I was aware of the object of your visit. Baskets of fruit and honeycombs await you under the shade of this mighty tree. The sun is about to descend into the roseate waters of the sacred river. When you have eaten, you will slumber pleasantly in this garden, where the joys of intellect and of sense have reigned since the day when I drove hence the spirit of old Demerage. Tomorrow I will give you my answer. Night hung in its blue veils over the garden. Satan fell asleep. He had a dream, and in that dream, soaring over the earth, he saw it covered with angels in revolt, beautiful as gods, whose eyes darted lightning. And from pole to pole, one single cry formed a myriad of cries, mounted toward him, filled with hope and love. And Satan said, let us go forth. Let us seek the ancient adversary in his high abode. and he led the countless host of angels over the celestial plains, and Satan was cognizant of what took place in the heavenly citadel. When news of this second revolt came thither, the Father said to the Son, "The irreconcilable foe is rising once again. Let us take heed to ourselves, and in this our time of danger, look to our defense, lest we lose our high abode." And the Son, consubstantial with the Father, replied, "We shall triumph under the sign that gave Constantine the victory." Indignation burst forth on the mountain of God. At the first, faithful Seraphim condemned the rebels to terrible torture, but afterward decided on doing battle with them. The anger burning in the hearts of all inflamed each countenance. They did not doubt of victory, but treachery was feared, and eternal darkness had been at once decreed for spies and alarmists. There was shouting and singing of ancient hymns and praise of the Almighty. They drank of the mystic wine. Courage, overinflated, came near to giving way, and secret anxiety stole into inner depths of their souls. The archangel Michael took supreme command. He reassured their minds by his serenity. His countenance, wherein his soul was visible, expressed contempt for danger. By his orders, the chiefs of the thunderbolts, the Krebs, grown dull with a long interval of peace, paced with heavy steps the ramparts of the holy mountain, and letting gaze of their bovine eyes wander over the lightning-flashed clouds of their lord, strove to place the divine batteries in position. After inspecting the defenses, they swore to the Most High that all was in readiness. They took counsel together as the plan they should follow. Michael was for the offensive. He, as a consummate soldier, said it was the supreme law: attack or be attacked. There was no middle course. Moreover, he added, the offensive attitude is particularly suitable to the ardor of the thrones and the denominations. Beyond that, it was impossible to obtain a word from the valiant chief, and this silence seemed to mark the genius sure of himself. As soon as the approach of the enemy was announced, Michael sent forth 3 armies to meet them, commanded by archangels Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. Standards displaying all colors of the Orient were unfurled above the ethereal plains, and the thunders rolled over the starry floors. For 3 days and 3 nights was the lot of the terrible and adorable armies unknown on the mountain of God. Toward dawn on the 4th day, news came, but it was vague and confused. There were rumors of indecisive victories, of the triumph now of this side, now of that. There came reports of glorious deeds which were dissipated in a few hours. The thunderbolts of Raphael hurled against the rebels had, it was said, consumed entire squadrons. The troops commanded by the impure Zeta were thought to have been swallowed up in the whirlwind of tempest of fire. It was believed that the savage Ishtar had been flung headlong into the gulf of perdition so suddenly that the blasphemies begun in his mouth had been forced backward with explosive results. It was popularly supposed that Satan, laden with chains of adamant, had been plunged once again into the abyss. Meanwhile, the commanders of 3 armies had sent no messages. Mutterings and murmurings, minglings with rumors of glory, gave rise to fears of indecisive battle. A precipitate retreat. Insolent voices gave out that a spirit of the lowest category of guardian angel, the insignificant arcade, had checked and routed the dazzling host of 3 great archangels. There were also rumors of wholesale defection in the seventh heaven, where rebellion had broken out before the beginning of time, and some had even seen black clouds of impious angels joining the armies of the rebels on earth. But no one lent an ear to odious rumors, and stress was laid on the news of victory, which ran from lip to lip, each statement readily finding confirmation. The high places resounded with hymns of joy. The seraphim celebrated on harp and psaltery. Sabaoth, God of thunder, the voices of the elect united with those of the angels in glorifying the invisible. And at the thought of the bloodshed that the ministers of holy wrath had caused among the rebels, sighs of relief and jubilation were wafted from heavenly Jerusalem to the Most High. But the beatitude of the Most Blessed, having swelled the utmost limit before due time, could increase no more, and the very excess of their felicity completely dulled their senses. The songs had not yet ceased when the guards watching on the ramparts signaled the approach of the first fugitives of the divine army. Seraphim on tattered wing, flying in disorder, maimed cherubs, going on 3 feet with impassive gaze. Michael, prince of warriors, measured the extent of the disaster, and his keen intelligence penetrated its causes. The armies of the living God had taken the offense, but by one of those fatalities in war which disconcert the plans of the greatest captains, the enemy had also taken offensive, and the effect was evident. Scarcely were the gates of the citadel opened to receive the glorious but shattered remnants of the 3 armies when a rain of fire fell on the mountain of God. Satan's army was not yet in sight, but the walls of topaz, the cupolas of emerald, the roofs of diamonds all fell in with an appalling crash under the discharge of electrophores. The ancient thunderclouds essayed to reply, but the bolts fell short, and their thunders were lost in the deserted plains of the skies. Smitten by an invisible foe, the faithful angels abandoned the ramparts. Michael went to announce to his God that the holy mountain would fall into the hands of the demon in 24 hours, and that nothing remained for the master of heaven but to seek safety in flight. The seraphim placed the jewels of the celestial crown in coffers. Michael offered his arm to the Queen of Heaven, and the Holy Family escaped from the palace by subterranean passage of porphyry. A deluge of fire was falling on the citadel. Regaining his post once more, the glorious archangel declared that he would never capitulate, and straightway advanced the standards of the living God. That same evening, the rebel host made its entry into the thrice sacred city. On a fiery steed, Satan led his demons. Behind him marched Arcade, Istar, and Zita. As in the ancient revels of Dionysus, old Nectar bestrode his ass. Thereafter, floating out far behind, followed the black standards. The garrison laid down their arms before Satan. Michael placed his flaming sword at the feet of the conquering archangel. "Take back your sword, Michael," said Satan. "It is Lucifer who yields it to you. Bear it in defense of peace and law." Then, letting his gaze fall on the leaders of the celestial cohorts, he cried in a ringing voice, "Archangel Michael, and you, powers, thrones, and dominations, swear all of you to be faithful to your God." "We swear it," they replied with one voice, and Satan said, "Powers, thrones, and dominations of all past wars, I wish but to remember the invincible courage that you displayed and the loyalty which you rendered to authority. For For these assure me of the steadfastness of the fealty you have just sworn to me. The following day, on the ethereal plane, Satan commanded the black standards to be distributed to troops, and the winged soldiers covered them with kisses and bewetted them with tears. And Satan had himself crowned as God. Thronging round the glittering walls of heavenly Jerusalem, apostles, pontiffs, virgins, martyrs, confessors, the whole company of elect, who during the fierce battle had enjoyed delightful tranquility, tasted infinite joy in the spectacle of the coronation. The elect saw with ravishment the Most High precipitated into hell, and Satan seated on the throne of the Lord. In conformity with the will of God, which had cut them off from sorrow, they sang in the ancient fashion the praises of their new master. And Satan, piercing space with his keen glance, contemplated the little globe of earth and water where the old he had planted the vine and formed the first tragic chorus, and he fixed his gaze on that Rome where the fallen god had founded his empire on fraud and a lie. Nevertheless, at that moment, a saint ruled over the church. Satan saw him praying and weeping, and he said to him, "To thee I entrust my spouse. Watch over her faithfully. In thee I confirm the right and power to decide matters of doctrine, to regulate the use of sacraments, to make laws, and to uphold purity of morals. And the faithful shall, under obligation to conform thereto, my church is eternal, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Thou art infallible, nothing is changed." The successor of the apostles felt flooded with rapture. He prostrated himself and, with forehead touching the floor, replied, "O Lord my God, I recognize thy voice. Thy breath has been wafted like balm to my heart. Blessed be thy name. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." And Satan found pleasure in praise, and in the exercise of his grace he loved to hear his wisdom and his power belauded. He listened with joy to the cantils of the cherubim who celebrated his good deeds, and he took no pleasure in listening to Nectar's flute, because it was celebrated nature itself, yielded to the insect and the blade of grass their share of power and love, and counseled happiness and freedom. Satan, whose flesh had crept in the days gone by at the idea of suffering prevailed in the world, now felt himself inaccessible to pity. He regarded suffering and death as happy results of omnipotence and sovereign kindness, and the savor of blood of victims rose upward toward him like sweet incense. He fell to condemning intelligence and hating curiosity. He himself refused to learn anything more, for fear that in acquiring fresh knowledge he might let it be seen that he had not known everything. At the very outset, he took the pleasure in mystery, and believing that he would seem less great by being understood, he affected to be unintelligible. Dense fumes of theology filled his brain. One day, following the example of his predecessor, he conceived the notion of proclaiming himself one God in three persons. Seeing Arcade smile as this proclamation was made, he drove him from his presence, Istar and Zeta, and long since returned to earth. Thus many centuries passed, like seconds. Now one day, from the altitude of his throne, he plunged his gaze into the depths of the pit and saw Isle Daboath in the Ghana, where he himself had long lain enchained. Amid the everlasting gloom, Isle still retained his lofty mane. Blackened and shattered, terrible and sublime, he glanced upward at the palace of the King of Heaven with a look of proud disdain, then turned away his head. And the new god, as he looked upon his foe, beheld the light of intelligence and love pass across his sorrow-stricken countenance. And lo, Ialadobath was now contemplating the earth and seeing it sunk in wickedness and suffering. He began to foster thoughts of kindliness in his heart. On a sudden he rose up, and beating the ether of his mighty arms, as though with oars, he hastened thither to instruct and to console mankind. Already his vast shadow shed upon the unhappy planet a shade soft as night of love. And Satan awoke, bathed in an icy sweat. Necator, Istar, Arcade, and Zeta were standing round him. The finches were singing. "Comrade," said the great archangel, "no, we will not conquer the heavens. Enough to have the power, war endangers war, and victory defeat. God conquered will become Satan. Satan conquering will become God. May the fates spare me this terrible lot. I love the hell which formed my genius. I love the earth where I have done some good, if it is possible to do any good in this fearful world where beings live but by rapine. Now, thanks to us, the god of old is disposed of his terrestrial empire, and every thinking being on this globe disdains him or knows him not. But what matter that men should no longer submissive to Ialdabaoth, in spirit of Ialdabaoth is still in them. If they, like him, are jealous, violent, quarrelsome, and greedy, and foes of the arts and of beauty, what matter that they have rejected the ferocious demiurge, if they do not hearken to the friendly demons who teach all truths, to Dionysus, Apollo, and even the Muses? As to ourselves, celestial spirits, sublime demons, we have destroyed Ialadobath, our tyrant, if in ourselves we have destroyed ignorance and fear. And Satan, turning to the gardener, said, Necator, you fought with me before the birth of the world. We were conquered because we failed to understand that victory is a spirit, and that it is in ourselves and in ourselves alone that we must attack and destroy Ialadobath. Wow. I'm going to pause on that one for just a moment. That one reaches me really hard. I have to pause. Wow. He said in conquering, it's the suppressor becomes the suppressed becomes the suppressor. And I think in modern times, you know, what's in the news now is Florida saying that they have to censor the statue of David, which was uncovered in the 1500s. I mean, they started to cover it, but they went, no, let's put it in a place of glory because it's art and it's beauty and it's beautiful. Wow. That was a very powerful one. That was a very powerful story. We have to defeat God in ourselves first. I like that. That was a good one. Okay. Moving on. The Faust legend. Let's just skip right to, we'll go past the introduction, and we'll do selection from part 1 of Faust. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Street. Faust. Margaret passing by. Faust. My fair young lady, may I make so free as to lend you my arm and company? Margaret. I'm not a lady, am not fair. I can go home without your care. She frees herself and exits. Faust. By heaven, but this child is fair. I've never seen her equal anywhere. So virtuous through and through, yet bit by with a bit of courtiness too. Her ruby lips, her cheeks clear bloom, I'll not forget till the day of doom. And then how she casts down her eyes, stamped deeply in my heart it lies. How curt and short were her replies, that fills me with sheer ecstasy. Mephistopheles appears. Faust. Here you must get that girl for me. Mephistopheles. Well, which one? She just went by. Mephistopheles. That one? She was just coming from her priest, absolved from every sin down to the least. Hard by their chair I stole quite nigh. She's innocent indeed, and thought, and went to confession, all for naught. Over her I have no power. Faust. She's over 14 years old, even so. Mephistopheles. My word, you talk like a gay Lothario, who covets for himself each lovely flower, and fancies puffed up there's no honor, no favor that he may not call. But yet that is not always possible. Sir, master, Faust. Sir, master, worshipful, I beg you, pause and leave me in peace with all your laws. And this I say, few words are best, unless that sweet young maiden lays her head this night upon my breast. At midnight we've gone different ways. Mephistopheles. Consider well what can and cannot be. I'll need at least some 14 days, but to send out an opportunity. Faust. Had I but 7 hours' rest, no need of devil would I have to lead a little creature such as this astray. Mephistopheles. You're talking almost like a Frenchman. Pray, don't let yourself be vexed beyond due measure. What good is it to reap immediate pleasure? The joy's not near so great, I say. As if you first prepare the ground with every sort of idle folly, knead and make ready your pretty dolly, as many romance tales expound. Faust. I've appetite without it too. Mephistopheles. Now jests aside, no more ado. With that good lovely child indeed, I tell you once for all, we can't use speed. There's nothing here to take by storm. To strategy we must conform. Faust. Get something that the angel owns for me. Oh, lead me to her place of rest. Get me a kerchief from her breast, a garter to my ecstasy. Mephistopheles. Now, just to prove that I'll be of helpful service in your agony, we'll lose no moment in delay. I'll lead you to her room this very day. Faust. And shall I see her? Have her? No. Mephistopheles. No. For she'll be at the neighbor's for a chat or so. While she is gone all by herself, you may enjoy her atmosphere till you are sated, and feast on the hope of joys anticipated. Faust. Can we go there? Mephistopheles. It is too early yet. Faust. Provide a gift for her, and don't forget. Exits Mephistopheles. Exit. Mephistopheles. Ah, gifts at once? That's good. He'll make a hit. Full many a lovely place I know, and many a treasure buried long ago. I must survey the ground a bit. Exit. Evening, a neat little room. Margaret, plaiting and binding her braids of hair. I would give something, could I say, Who was that gentleman today? Right gallant did he seem to be, and of some noble family, that from his brow I could have told, else he would not have been so bold. Exit. Mephistopheles, Faust. Mephistopheles. Come in, come and tiptoe. Faust, after a silence. Leave me alone here, I entreat. Mephistopheles, peering about. Not every girl keeps things so neat. Exit. Faust, looking up and around. Welcome, O thou sweet twilight glow, that thou this shrine art stirring to and fro. Sweet agony of love, possess this heart of mine. Thou who on dews of hope dost live and yet dost pine. What sense of quiet breath breathes around, of order, of contentedness? What riches in this poverty abound? Within this prison, what blessedness! He throws himself on the leather armchair by the bed. Oh, welcome me, thou who, the world now gone, didst once receive in joy and sorrow open-armed, and often around his father's throne, a flock of children clinging swarmed. And thankful for the Christmas gift, maybe my darling here, her childish cheeks filled out, kissed grandsire's withered hand devotedly. Grandsire's withered hand devotedly. I feel, O maid, thy spirit radiate, abundance, order around about, that motherly instructs thee day by day, bids thee the cloth upon the table neatly lay, even make the sand of thy feet decorate. O darling hand, so godlike in thy ministry, the hut becomes the realm of heaven through thee, and here, he lifts one of the bed curtains, what bliss, and lay hold on me. Here, for a whole hours, I fain would tarry. O nature, here didst thou in visions airy mold her an angel in nativity. Here lay the child with warm life heaving, the tender bosom filled and grew, and here with pure and holy weaving, the image of gods was wrought anew. And thou, O Faust, what led thee here, I feel, my very inmost being reel. What wouldst thou here? What waits thy heart so sore? O wretched Faust, I know thee now no more. Does magic play about me, sweet and rare? Some force impelled me to enjoy without delay, and now in dreams of love I seem to float away. Are we in the sport of every puff of air? And if this very moment the might enter here, for thy rash conduct, how wouldst thou atone? Thou great lout, how small wouldst thou appear? How melted at her feet thou wouldst lie prone. Mephistopheles enters. Be quick, I see her coming down the lane. Faust, away, I'll never come back here again. Mephistopheles, here is a casket of some weight, which I got elsewhere as a bait. Here, put it in the press this minute. She'll lose her senses, I swear it to you. In fact, I put some trinkets in it. Enough another nobler maid to woo, but still a child's play is but still a child's a child and play is play. Faust. I don't know if I should. Mephistopheles. Why ask you, pray? Do you perhaps intend to hoard the treasure? Then I advise you in your lustfulness to waste no more sweet hours of leisure, and spare me further strain and stress. I hope that you're not greedy. I rub my hands, I scratch my head. He puts the casket in the press and turns the lock again. Away and speedy, to turn the sweet young child that she be led to satisfy your heart's desire and will, and you look round, as if to lecture you were bound, as if before you living still stood physics and metaphysics grey, but off and away. Exit. Margaret, with a lamp. Here is such close, such sultry air. Opens window. And yet, it's really not warm out there. I feel so strange. I don't know how. I wish that mother came home now. From head to foot I'm shuddering. I'm but a foolish, fearsome thing. She begins to sing while she undresses. There was in the Thule olden a king true till the grave, to whom the beaker golden his dying mistress gave. Not prized be more this lover. He drained it at each bout. His eyes with tears brimmed over, as oft he drank it out. And when he came to dying, his towns and his lands he told, not else his heir denying, except the beaker of gold. Around him knights and wassail, at a royal feast sat he, in his father's lofty castle, the castle by the sea. There he, the old pleasure-seeker, drank standing life's last glow, then hurled the sacred beaker into the waves below. He saw it plunging, drinking, and seeking in the sea, and so his eyes were sinking, never one drop more drank he. She opens the press to put away her clothes, and catches sight of the little jewel casket. How come this lovely casket is in my press? Indeed, I turned the lock, most certainly. It's very strange. What's in it, if it can I guess? Someone has brought as a pledge, maybe, and on it mother loaned a bit. Here on the ribbon hangs a little key. I really think I'll open it. What is that? God in heaven, see? I've never seen such things as here. Jewels a noble lady might appear. With these on any holiday, this chain, how could it look on me? Ah, whose can all splendor be? Whose can all this splendor be? She adorns herself with it, and steps before the mirror. Were but these earrings mine, I say, one looks at once quite differently. What good is beauty, blood of youth, all that is nice and fine in truth? However, people pass and let it be. They praise you, half with pity, though be sure, toward gold throng, all to gold cling, all, yes, all, alas, we poor. A promenade. Faust, walking thoughtfully up and down, Mephistopheles joins him. Mephistopheles. By every despised love, by the red-hot fires of hell, would I knew something worse to curse by it as well. Faust. What is the matter? What's so badly vexing you? I've never seen you before face that looked that way. Mephistopheles. Off to the devil I'd betake myself this day, if I myself was not a devil too. Faust. What has gone wrong? Why thus behave? It suits you well to rant and rave. Mephistopheles. Just think the gems for Gretchen that I got. A wretched priest has bagged the lot. The mother gets to see the stuff and starts at once to feel the secret shuddering. The woman has sent that's fine enough. Forever in her prayer book she delights to snuff, and smells it out in every single thing, if it been sacred or profane. So in those gems she noses till it's plain that they held little blessing, little good. My child, she cried, to keep unrighteous gain perturbs the soul, consumes the blood. We'll dedicate it to the mother of our Lord. With heavenly manna she'll reward. Then Gretchen drew her mouth askew. For surely godless is not he who brought it here so handsomely. The mother summoned in a priest who came, and when he'd scarce perceived the game, got much contentment from the sight. He said, so one is minded right. Who overcometh winneth a crown. The church hath good stomach ever. Whole countries hath gobbled down, and yet hath overeaten never. The church alone, dear ladies, best, can all unrighteous goods digest. Faust. That is a custom that men oft pursue. A Jew and a king can do it too. Mephistopheles. With that he bagged brooch, chain, and rings, and if mere toadstools were the things, and thanked them neither less nor more than were a basket of nuts he bore. He promised them all heavenly pay, and greatly edified thereby were they. And Gretchen, Faust, and Gretchen, Mephistopheles, now sits restless. What she would, she knows not, neither that she should. Thinks of the jewels night and day, still more on him who brought them to her. Faust, the darling's grief distresses me. Quick, get new ornaments to woo her. The first ones were not much to see. Mephistopheles, oh yes, my lord. Thinks all is mere child's play. Faust, make haste and do things as I like them done. Into her neighbor's graces win your way. Devil, don't be like mush and move so slow. Fetch some new ornaments up now and run. Mephistopheles, yes, gracious sir, with all my heart I'll go. Exit Faust. Such an enamored fool would puff and blow sun, moon, and stars into thin air, just as a pastime for his lady fair. Exit. The neighbor's house. Martha alone. God pardon my dear husband, he has truly not done well by me, off in the world to go and roam, and leave me in the straw at home. Sure I did not to vex him truly, and God knows always loved him duly. She weeps. Perhaps he's even dead. Oh, cruel fate! If I but had death certificate. Margaret enters. Margaret, Dame Martha, Martha, Gretchen dear, what can it be? Margaret, my knees almost sink under me. There in my press I found again just such a casket, and of ebony, and things magnificent they are, much richer than the first by far. Martha, you must not tell that to your mother. She would confess to it like the other. Margaret, only look, see now do. Martha, decking her out, you lucky creature, you. Margaret, alas, these jewels I can never wear at church, or on the street I'd never dare. Martha, come often over here to me, and here put on the jewels secretly. Stroll up and down before the mirror for a season. We'll have our own sweet joy of it. And then there'll be a feast day for some or other reason, when one lets people see them, bit by bit, a chain at first, a pearl then in your ear. Your mother scarce will see it. We'll coin some fib or other. Margaret, but both the caskets, who would bring them both? Some wrong in this thing, someone knocks. Good heaven, my mother, can that have been? Martha, peeping through the curtain. It's some strange gentleman. Come in. Mephistopheles enters. Mephistopheles, I'm very bold to walk in right away. The pardon of the ladies I must pray. He steps back respectfully in the presence of Margaret. Dame Martha Schwetlin, Dame Martha Schwetlin, I would like to find. Martha, I am she. What's the gentleman upon his mind? Mephistopheles. We'll let the clock ring out. I am she. What has the gentleman upon his mind? Mephistopheles. Aside to her. I know you know. That is enough for me. You have a most distinguished guest, I see. Excuse the liberty I took. If it is not too soon, I'll come again this afternoon. Martha aloud. Imagine, child of all things on this earth, a gentleman thinks you of noble birth. Margaret. But I am poor, young thing, as you see. The gentleman is far too kind to me. The ornaments and jewels are not my own. Mephistopheles. Ah, it is not the ornaments alone. You've such a sweet manner, so refined a way. How glad I am I may stay. Martha, what is your errand? I would like to hear. Mephistopheles. I wish my tidings brought more cheer. I hope you'll not make me repent this meeting. Your husband's dead and sends a greeting. Martha. Is dead? The faithful heart? Oh, woe! My husband's dead. I am dying. Oh! Margaret. Ah, don't despair, Dame Martha, dear. Mephistopheles. Prepare the mournful tale to hear. Margaret. That's why I would not love a while I draw breath. Oh, that's why I would not love while I draw a breath. Such a loss as this would make me grieve to death. Mephistopheles. Joy must sorrow, sorrow joy must know. Martha. Relate the ending of his life to me. Mephistopheles. In Padua he's buried, midst a row of graves close to St. Anthony, in holy ground that was well blessed, forever cool of his bed of rest. Martha. Did you bring nothing else beside? Mephistopheles. Oh, yes, a weighty great petition. 300 masses are you to provide. My pockets? They have not. Thus endeth my commission. What? Says Martha. Not a medal? Not a trinket, such as a journeyman deep in the pouch doth hide, as remembrance puts aside, and hungers rather begs than touch? Mephistopheles. Madam, that grieves me much. But let me say, he truly did not throw his cash away, and deeply did he all his faults deplore. Yes, the bewailed his ill luck still much, much more. Margaret. Alas, the bad luck men do meet. Full many a requiem for him will I pray. Mephistopheles. You're fit, I think, to wed this very day. You're so lovable and so sweet. Margaret. That would not do as yet. Oh, no. Mephistopheles. If not a husband, be it for a while a beau, for of the greatest gifts of heaven it is one to have within our arms a lover dear. Margaret. That's not the custom of the country here. Mephistopheles. Custom or not, at any rate it's done. Martha. Tell on, oh please. Mephistopheles. I stood where dying he was laid. 'Twas not a dung heap, somewhat better it was made, of rotting straw, but as a Christian did he die, thinking he owed far greater penance for his life. He deeply must I hate myself, I heard him cry. How deeply I must I hate myself, I heard him cry, to leave my business, so my wife. Alas, my recollections killing me. If she could but forgive me in this life. Martha, weeping. The good man, I forgave him long since truthfully. Mephistopheles. But she, God knows, was more to blame than I. He lies. What, at the grave brink so to lie? Mephistopheles. He fabled as he breathed his last, be sure. If I'm only half a connoisseur, I could not gape for pastime. So he said. First children, then to get them bred, and bred in all the broadest sense, I swear. Yet never could I eat in peace my share. Martha, to all my love, fidelity. Oh, Martha, to all my love, fidelity, he gave no thought, nor to my drudgery by night and day. Mephistopheles. Not so. He thought of it most warmly, as he ought. He said, "From Malta once I sailed away, and ardently for my wife and children did I pray. Then heaven favored us in gracious measure, because our ship a Turkish vessel caught, which in the mighty Sultan bore a treasure. Then valor was rewarded as was fit, and I received moreover as one ought, my own well-measured share of it." Martha. "Oh, what? Oh, where? Perhaps he buried it." Mephistopheles. "Who knows where the four winds have carried it? A pretty miss adopted him as her dear friend. When he in Naples strange was circulating, she gave him love and troth and unabating, that he felt the result until his blessed end." Martha. "The scamp, the robber of his children, he, and all that he want, and that misery could not prevent the shameful life he led." Mephistopheles. "Well, he was paid for it, and now he's dead. If I were now in your place here, I'd mourn him for a well-bred year. Meanwhile, be on the lookout for a sweetheart new." Martha. "Oh, God! Another like the first I knew, I'll hardly find on earth again. The scarce, the scarce could be dearer, the scarce could be dearer little fool than mine. Only to Rome he was so much inclined, and then he loved those foreign women, also foreign wine, and that accursed dice throwing." Mephistopheles. Now, things could have gone and still be going, if I perchance as much in you had overlooked on his part too. I swear on terms like these, if you'd agree, I'd ask you to exchange a ring with me." Martha. "The gentleman is pleased to jest." Mephistopheles aside. "Now to make off betimes were best. She hold the very devil to his word." To Gretchen. "How's your heart? Has it been stirred?" Margaret. "What means the gentleman?" Mephistopheles aside. "You innocent, sweet dear." Aloud. "Ladies, goodbye." Margaret. "Goodbye." Martha. "Oh, quickly let me hear the evidence I'd like to have and save it." "Where How and my darling died, and his grave of order I have always been a friend, and in our weekly I would like to read his end." Mephistopheles. "Yes, my good woman. What two witnesses attest is always known as truth made manifest, and with me I've a splendid mate. I tell you, I'll take him before a magistrate. I'll bring him here." Martha. "Oh, do that, do." Mephistopheles. "And this young lady will be here too? A gallant chap, and travelled far has he, and shows young ladies every courtesy." Margaret. "Before the gentleman I'd flush with shame." Mephistopheles. "Before no king this earth could name." Martha. "Behind my house, in my garden then, this evening will wait the gentlemen." Let me just see how much more of Faust there is. Okay, we can go on. There's just a few more pages. A street. Faust Mephistopheles. Faust. "How goes it? Will it work? Soon win the game?" Mephistopheles. "Ah, bravo. Do I find you all aflame? Gretchen will be in a brief time be your own. This evening you will see her all alone at neighbor Martha's. That's a woman made for go-between and gypsy's trade." Faust. "'Tis well." Mephistopheles. Yet something's wanted from us too. Faust. One service may demand another, as is due. Mephistopheles. We have in due form only to attest that her good spouse's outstretched limbs repose in Padua, in concentrated soil at rest. Faust. Most wise. We first must make this journey, I suppose. Mephistopheles. Sancta simplistas. Of that there is no need. You don't know much, but still dispose. Faust. If that's your best, I tear your plan asunder. Mephistopheles. O saintly man, then you would be a saint indeed. Is it the first time in your life you've borne false witness? Well, I wonder. Of God, the world, and what therein is rife. Of man, what stirs within his heart and brain? Have you no definition given without might and main? With brazen brow and dauntless breast? And if you'll only probe things truly, you knew of them, you must confess. It's duly. Confess it duly. No more than the Schwantzen's death and the place of rest. Faust. You are and you remain a liar, sophist too. Mephistopheles. Yes, if one did not have a little deeper view, will you not presently cajole? Poor Gretchen, in all honor too, and swear to her the love of your soul? Faust. I swear it from my heart. Mephistopheles. Fine, I declare. Then there'll be talk of love, fidelity eternal, of one almighty force supernal. Will that too issue from your heart alone? Faust. Have done it will, and when the feeling of my senses reeling, I seek for names and yet find none, and through the world with every sense sweep on, toward the loftiest phrases grasping turn, and this glow from which I burn, endless, eternal, eternal name, is that a devilish lying game? Mephistopheles. And yet I'm right. Faust. Take heed, mark this from me, I beg of you, and spare my lungs. He who maintains his right, if his gift of tongues, will have the last word certainly. So come this prating rouses my disgust. I'll say you're right, especially since I must. A garden. Margaret on Faust's arm, and Martha on Mephistopheles, walking up and down. Margaret. I feel the gentleman is only sparing me, so consents that I am all confused. A traveller is so much used to bear with things good-naturedly. I know too well my poor talk hardly can amuse you, and an experienced man. Faust, Faust, one glance from you, one word more entertains than all the wisdom of the world contains. He kisses her hand. Margaret, don't incommode yourself. How can my hand be kissed by you? It is so ugly and so rough. What work is there that I've not had to do? My mother's more strict enough. They pass on. Martha, and you, sir, are 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 you always on the go? Mephistopheles. Alas, that business duty drive us so. With now much pain one goes from many a place, and even so, one simply must not stay. Martha. In active years, perhaps 'tis well this way, thus freely round and round the world to race, but then the evil times come on apace, and as a bachelor to drag on the grave alone, that has been good for no one, you must own. Mephistopheles. With dread I see it far away. Martha. Then, worthy sir, consider while you may. They pass on. Margaret. Yes, out of sight is out of mind. To you so easy is this courtesy, but many friends you always find more sensible than I can be. Faust. Oh, dear one, trust me, that which men call sense is oft but vanity and narrowness. Margaret. But why? Tell me. Faust. Ah, that simplicity, that innocence, that neither its own sacred value knows, that lowliness, humility, those gifts supreme, that loving nature's bountiness hand bestows. Margaret, though you may think of me for a moment only, I'll have time enough to think of you and dream. Faust, you are often lonely, Margaret, yes, for our household is but small, and yet one has to look to all. We have no maid, must cook, sweep, sew, and knit, and early run about and late, and mother is in all of it, so accurate. Not that in spending she must feel confined. We could branch out far more than many do. My father left a pretty property behind, a house outside the town, a little garden too. Yet now I've pretty quiet days. My brother, he's a soldier lad. My little sister's dead. A deal of trouble with the child did I go through, yet once more would I gladly undertake the bother. I loved the child so much, Faust. An angel, if like you, Margaret. I brought it up, and it was fond of me. I brought it up, and it was fond of me. Father had died when it was born. We gave our mothers up for lost, so worn and wretched lying there was she, and she grew well so slowly, bit by bit, she could not think of suckling it. Herself, the poor little babe, pitifully wee, and so I brought it up, and quite alone, with milk and water, so it became my own. Upon my arm and in my lap it threw itself about, was friendly too, and it grew. Faust, you surely felt the purest happiness. Margaret, but also many weary hours, I must confess. The wee thing's cradle stood at night beside my bed, it scarcely might. Just stir, I was awake. Sometimes I had to give it drink, sometimes to take it in with me, sometimes from bed arise, and dandle it up and down the room so to hush its cries, and the wash-tub stand at daylight's break, then to the marketing and to the hearth attend, tomorrow too, just like today, so without end. Thus, sir, one's spirits are not always of the best, but in return one relishes both food and rest. They pass on. Martha, poor woman, having things hard, it's true. A bachelor's not easy to convert. Mephistopheles. It but depends upon the like of you, for then my present ways I might desert. Martha, speak out, sir. Is there none you have ever met? Has your heart never bound itself as of yet? Mephistopheles, one's own good wife and hearth, we're told as worth as much as pearls and gold. Martha, I mean, you have never felt passion? Mephistopheles, I've always been received in very courteous fashion. Martha, I mean, has love and earnest never stirred your breast? Mephistopheles, with ladies one should never dare to jest. Martha, you don't understand me. Mephistopheles, you distress me. And yet I understand. Most kindly would you be. They pass on. Faust, did you, oh little angel, straightway recognize me when I came into the garden? Margaret, did you not see that I cast down my eyes? Faust, that liberty I took you'll pardon. The daring impudence that day, when coming from the church you went your way. Margaret, I was confused. To me it never had occurred on one could say of what's bad. Ah, thought I, in your manner, then has he seen something bold, unmaidenly? It seemed to strike him right away, to have some dealings with this girl without delay. Yet I confess, I know not why my heart began at once to stir to take your part, but with myself I was right vexed, it's true, that I could not become more vexed towards you. Sweet darling! Margaret, wait a bit. She plucks a star flower, picks it off the petals, one after another. Faust, What's that nosegay? Margaret. No, it's just a game. Faust. What? You will laugh at me. Do go. She pulls off the petals and murmurs. Faust. What are you murmuring? Margaret, half aloud. He loves me. He loves me not. Sweet heavenly vision. Margaret goes on. Loves me not, loves me not. He loves me, plucking off the last petal with lovely joy. Faust, yes, my child, and let this blossom's word be oracle of the gods to you. He loves you. You understand that word and what it means. He loves you. He seizes both her hands. Margaret, I'm all a tremble. Faust, oh, shudder not, but let this look, let this hand pressure say to you, what is unspeakable, to give oneself up wholly and to feel a rapture that must be eternal. Eternal, for its end would disappear. No, no, no end, no end. Margaret presses his hands, freezes herself, and runs away. He stands a moment in thought and then follows her. Martha coming. The night comes on, Mephistopheles. Yes, we must away. Martha. I'd ask you make your stay a longer, make you a longer stay. But it's a wicked place here round about, as if no one had naught to carry through and naught to do, but gape at all the neighbors going in and out. One's talked about, do all one may, and our dear couple, Mephistopheles. Up that walk I saw them were, the wanton butterflies. Martha, he seems to take her, Mephistopheles, and she to him. So runs the world away. The garden house. Margaret runs in, hides behind the door, holds the tip of her finger to her lip, and peers through the crevice. Margaret, he's coming. Faust enters. Rogue, it's thus you tease. I've caught you. He kisses her. Margaret, embracing him and returning the kiss. Best of men, I love you from my heart. Mephistopheles knocks. Faust, stamping. Who's there? Mephistopheles. A friend. Faust. A beast. Mephistopheles. I think it's time to part. Martha enters. Yes, sir, it's late. Faust. Mayn't I escort you, please? Margaret. My mother would. Goodbye. Faust. Faust. Must I go then? Goodbye. Martha. Adieu. Margaret. But soon to meet again. Faust and Mephistopheles exit. Margaret. Dear God, the things that such a man can think of, everything I only can stand there before him, shamed and quivering, and answer yes to everything. I am poor, unknowing child, and I do not see what he can find in me. Exit. And then we'll pick up next week with The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. And with that, my lovelies, thank you for joining me on Storytime. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your shares. Thank you for joining me at University Magicus. Thank you for joining me on all of the other things. Thank you for keeping me in your heart and in your mind. Thank you for your energy. And with that, unpleasant screams. Good night, my darklings. Much love.